Yes. This is live. I thought it's having some problem. Okay, so my name is Ria Rustagi. I'm the co-founder of a startup called Newfini in Munich. We are developing a wearable neurofeedback device which validates your mental health in the sense that it tracks your brain activity and then converts it into user understandable format such as stress, anxiety, and focus levels. So, we are starting the pre-sales of this device from tomorrow for orders. So you can visit our website www.newfini.com. And as a part of our startup, every week on Sunday, we have a specialist, a professional from the domain of mental health. It can be psychologists, neuroscientists, or even meditation experts. And today we have Mallika Bhatia, who's a psychotherapist in Munich. She has studied and practiced in India as well. Welcome, Mallika, to our platform.
Thank you, Ria.
Mallika has done MA in clinical psychology from India. She has trained and interned at AIIMS and Fortis mental health hospitals, and now is a life coach, a blogger, a counseling psychologist, and a mom. So, welcome, Mallika. First, I would like you to introduce yourself to our audience in just in case something I have missed out.
Perfect. Thank you, and all the best for your startup. I
Thank
hope
you.
it does amazingly well because it is the need of the hour, truly.
Yes. Thank you.
You've already told my name. I'm Mallika Bhatia. I am a psychotherapist.
Mm-hmm.
I started my practice very early on. Like you said, I did trainings in various hospitals. And then I started my own practice. So I practiced in India for about 12, 13 years before moving to Germany, and this is where I've been practicing. Um, yeah, basically that's that. I love to write. I am completely passionate about working with people, helping them find their inner answers because they are
Mm-hmm.
always within themselves. So yeah,
Okay,
that is me.
thank you. So generally how this goes is I have prepared few questions for you and our audience will also ask questions. So just be ready. My
Absolutely.
first question is, can you explain what a therapy session really looks like? Because this is the most asked question I could found from my audience.
Okay. So, a classic therapy session is something that has changed right now because of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
But usually, traditionally, therapy was always done face to face.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that's changed is it is now virtual, but usually a session would be around 50 to 60 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And during this time, uh, the structure is that initially the therapist would ask a lot of questions uh, in order to understand what is it that is troubling the client, what is
Mm-hmm.
it that they want to deal with. And it's really funny that sometimes people come and say that, oh, I actually have a physical symptom, so I have this ringing in my ear, and I've been through all the medical specialists and they say seek psychotherapy. And
Mm-hmm.
when you start talking, you realize that this entire physical issue was actually psychosomatic.
Mm-hmm.
So, in the first session per se, the therapist would try and reach to the core of the issue as
Okay.
to where is the issue that's coming from, where is the issue coming from, because there is a presenting problem
Mm-hmm.
and then there is an actual core issue.
Mm-hmm.
That is how it would be. A lot of therapists, including me, give a lot of homework to the clients because it is not just talking, but it's
Mm-hmm.
also working on ourselves when we
Yes.
are not talking to the therapist.
Mm-hmm.
So usually the last 10 minutes is about the homework and how they need to do it. And so that is what a structure is like. It is like talking.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually it's like you and me talking. That's
Okay.
as simple as that.
Exactly. That's what I generally say. I have not been into therapy, but I feel that it's more like talking to a friend who's your personal cheerleader, and they are only there for your best interest and help you really understand yourself.
Absolutely. And I would just like to add here that they are also, like, yes, they are your personal cheerleaders, but they are also there to show you the mirror. Because
Yes.
a lot of times we are so delusional about ourselves, and that is what causes the entire issue. Because we believe, oh, I've done nothing wrong. The world is coming on to me. So in that sense, the therapist's job is also to, show the mirror.
Yes, definitely. And I think that is the most important in today's lifestyles and where to are heading. Not that just with today's lifestyle, I can actually vouch for that. That today we really need something who can show us the mirror, because sometimes we are always in this self questioning, self stigma based. Am I supposed to be like this? Is this what the society expects out of me? And that always remains a question which is, I think, bothering everybody. It's irrespective of generations in today's time.
Absolutely, absolutely. I completely agree. And unfortunately, social media has a huge impact on us, and it has some amazing impacts. And I will not say that it's completely negative, but the worst thing that I have seen, and this is across generations, is this: we all already have so much self-doubt, and then there is social media. There are people who are not truly being completely honest,
Yes.
but when we look at them and their posts, we think, oh my goodness, there's
Yes.
so much I'm lacking. And that adds on to the self-doubt, and everything that you feel about yourself, everything negative becomes like a mountain.
Yes. One thing I have to say here is that I've been doing this for 16 weeks. I never actually kind of felt, I never questioned myself when it comes to social media. So until I started doing these live sessions, I never realized from experts such as yourself that this is actually a big problem for most of the people. And every person who comes out on my platform has this one thing to say, that social media has a very wrong impact sometimes on people's mental health.
Absolutely.
Perfect. So thank you for actually bringing this again, because I really feel people need to really hear it out every week. My next question would be, who should seek therapy?
Everybody. It's as simple as that, because everyone, each one of us feels stuck. We feel we don't have answers. We feel we don't know enough. There are certain times when we feel stressed. And rather than getting into this phase of self-doubt and making it a permanent thing in your life and making it a way of processing information about yourself, rather than that, when there is help available, why not go and just talk to somebody? And I actually recommend therapy for everybody, because everybody needs it. A lot of people think, and especially in India, in the Indian society, that we can just go to an aunt or a cousin or a friend and talk to them, and that's it. They have obviously an immense amount of benefit, of course, and talking to somebody is cathartic and it is amazing, and I am not undermining the value of that. But these people are in our inner circle. They usually cannot be objective.
Yeah.
Oftentimes they are the reasons why we doubt ourselves, or why we have these so-called problems and stressors. So I think anybody could go for therapy. Anybody should. All of us should.
Yes.
In fact, I seek therapy when I find myself stuck. And honestly, I can't, there's nothing else that I would rather do. I won't go and talk to 100 friends, because, again, I need a neutral perspective. I need somebody
Yes.
to tell me that this is okay, this is where you're wrong, this is where you're right. Friends, cousins, bhabis, mommies won't do that. They would either only tell you where you're right or only tell you where you're wrong.
Can actually imagine what you're saying. If we start doing this, there are so many problems we can resolve by this. Correct me if I'm wrong. We have a lot of expectations from our families and our relatives and our friends, because we want to be constantly available to us. But if we are actually regularly seeking therapy, then we have that one person who we can take our problems to, and our queries and our questions about ourselves, and these kind of issues can also get resolved. It is actually because these expectations sometimes leads to questioning ourselves, as you said, because these relatives and friends are kind of the reason why we question ourselves. And this could, going to a therapist can actually solve so many issues. Even if there is no issue, these small day-to-day questioning which we do to ourselves, am I worth it, was this day good enough, was I productive, all these can be resolved by a general conversation with the person who's professional and non-biased.
Absolutely, I agree with you. But I would also like to add that people who especially go through mood swings, who have anxiety, or who have, like we were discussing, who have self doubt, and who just question themselves and their decisions, should always, like, it's like a must.
Exactly. Can you point out some of these symptoms like emotional outburst, anything which are, let's say, which is not so common, and which should be, we should figure out a reason for that. Do you have any such list of symptoms we can look out for in our near and dear ones?
Yes. So if you think that you're, obviously, I'm talking about if you're doing it for yourself. But so if you think you have mood swings, or and everybody has mood swings, that's absolutely okay. You can have a great day and the next day you can have a low day, and that's absolutely all right. But when you have a low day and you find yourself stuck in that mood for more than a day or two and you can't get out of it, that's one pointer where you think, okay, let's just seek help. I'm not saying that this is because you are depressed or you have this disorder or any of those. I'm just saying that, if you are continuously in a specific mood without a major reason, like a loss of a person or a pet or somebody, then there is something going on in your mind. There is a process that your subconscious or your conscious is not being able to process and let go, a thought that's bothering you, and somewhere it points towards a lot of internal conflict, self-doubt, a lack of confidence. So that could be one. Second is where you uh, feel anxious, sometimes for no reasons at all, or sometimes there are reasons but you can't control the anxiety. Then third could be if you find yourself very confused, decision making is difficult, and then there is no confidence. When you've taken a decision, you're not sure whether it's the right decision. So, if there's this constant state of confusion, again, it tells a therapist for that matter, that there is some processing that isn't as it's supposed to be, and maybe seeking a therapist's help will just simply give you a different way of processing that information or dealing with it differently, you know so that and these obviously I'm mentioning apart from the classic mental issues, like there's depression and there's anxiety, and I'm saying for people like you said, which are not so common, and we think, do I need therapy?
Exactly.
No, I will just let it pass. Unfortunately, we don't let it pass.
And
We store it all in our subconscious, and it keeps coming back. And this is how patterns are formed in life. So, for example, if you have a father who always told you, you know what, you're good for nothing, and now you just keep it in your mind. As a child, you don't know how to process it. So this becomes your absolute reality. Now you grow up, you're 30 and 40, and even at 40, no matter what you do, no matter what you achieve, your internal voice is just telling you that you're good for nothing. And outwardly you may be the CEO of a company, and you may have an amazing family life and everything would be perfect, so to say, but internally you feel broken. Now, even in such a situation, there is no seen disorder. You can't
yeah,
see, say, oh, this is what I would diagnose this as.
exactly.
Yet, there is this condition internally, there's this trauma internally that you have not sorted. And it'll keep coming back in your life and it'll keep forming a pattern. Whereas wherever you are, whatever you achieve, you would feel like a failure. So if that is something that resonates with you, if that's something you hear and you say, that's exactly what I feel, then you should seek therapy.
Thank you so much for answering this so nicely, because this was exactly the point which we want the audience to capture here, that therapy is not for a person who should look like this. This is not a diagnosis which we are making. It can be for anybody and everyone, anyone who wants to have a conversation, who has any kind of even slightest of issue with their inner demons. I think, I'm not sure what technical word should I use here,
Yeah.
but
The entire
yes,
part of this, the entire point of this is to go away from technicality and make everybody understand that it is as normal as
as normal.
talking. So forget the terminology.
Perfect. Okay, then my next question would be, how long can it last? How long a therapy could last for a person
You mean one session, or do you mean
in general?
In general, I would say there is no set criteria. Um, at least 8 to 10 sessions is an average. Sometimes it's lesser, rarely, but it's lesser. And sometimes it goes on for years, but sporadically. So initially you start, you work on an issue actively, and then at least that's how I do it. I would always work on one particular issue actively, and then give the client some space to try out everything, that all the training, everything they've learned or unlearned, practice it in the real world,
Okay.
without an external help of a therapist. I'm always available, so I always tell them I'm there on WhatsApp. Just send me a message anytime you need. But take this gap of 2-3 months and see how it is. And so so that's one format, and in that format it can actually go on for life, like very need of the hour based. So I actually have people I've been working with for 15 years, but I would, and as a random example, I initially worked with them for, let's say, about 4 months regularly. And then there are years when I don't work with them. And then suddenly they'll come back and they'll say, you know what, this is what is
What is happening?
bothering me now. Can we work with this?
Okay.
So there's no
On the
fixed
fixed time.
answer for this.
Yeah, this was actually one of the most asked questions in the poll I had put after your post, that people wanted to really know, because you know how we go with the physical illness, that this is okay, take this medicine for 3 times a day, 3 days a week, and then you will be done.
Done.
So that's how people want to treat mental health as well. Now, one question is, let's assume that I am coming to you. I'm going a little off script, but I want this information out. So if I, as a person, I'm just not happy. Let's assume I'm just not happy and I don't know what's wrong, because it's very difficult for me to address. What should I expect when I approach you? When I come to you and sit in your room, what should I expect? Do I have, because when we go to a general physician, I have to tell him that I'm having fever, I have this. I have to kind of do a self analysis first when we go to a physician, that I am having these symptoms. But when we come to a psychotherapist, what should we know about? What?
It's pretty similar, where when you come, it is initially, it is only you doing most of the talking. The therapist would be asking you questions, but these questions are designed in a way that help you open up easily. So yes, it would be you talking, and you, like you described to the medical doctor, to the MBBS doctor, that, oh, I have fever and I have a cold and I have a cough and maybe it's COVID. But the same way you would come to a therapist and you would say, I am not happy. And usually, very classically, people would come and say, you know what, I am not happy. You tell me why.
Yeah.
So, but it would be you doing all the talking
Mm-hmm.
without you realizing it. And
Exactly.
that's where the therapy, the intelligence of the therapist comes.
Where to
Yeah.
catch the loopholes or maybe like the conversation weak points of that person. Okay. So, my next question is, what is the most challenging and the difficult part of a therapy session? Both for you as a psychotherapist and as a client.
I think it is actually the same thing for both.
Mm-hmm.
Is a lot of people start therapy,
Mm-hmm.
and when you start therapy, you think, I'm going to somebody, so the onus of my getting better is
Mm-hmm.
on them,
Mm-hmm.
which is not the case at all.
Mm-hmm.
The therapist is just there to help you, to guide you, but the therapist can't ever go on your journey. So
Mm-hmm.
the onus is always the client's.
Mm-hmm.
Hence, the most difficult part is people start it but stop it in the middle because they realize, it's not as easy as I thought because I have to do all the work. The therapist doesn't do anything. That's what they think, but very honestly, that's the process that
Yeah.
goes on. So that's the most difficult for the client, of
Mm-hmm.
course, but also for me as a therapist or for all the therapists, I'm sure, because there is a certain amount of time and energy that you have now invested into this client, and it then suddenly goes.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, overall, I would say that is the most difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the second most difficult would be where the client wants to work on himself or herself, and the actual work is what is tough because here we are talking about changing our entire belief systems, changing the way we think or process information that we've been processing information forever.
Mm-hmm.
So to consistently work on that change, that is the second most difficult part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what about the fact that, as you said, actually, it's a subsection of this part, the belief part, because people think of themselves as somebody and they are really not self-aware of what is causing them, because sometimes, like, even I am irritated at something else, but my anger gets kind of diverted to the last thing which really poked the bear, that kind of things, and then I'm thinking I'm just irritated because somebody said something wrong to me. Maybe subconsciously I'm having a weak day because I thought of something from my past, or maybe things like that. Is this also a challenge for people to address and not do are they adamant sometimes that no, this is not it, this is, I just don't accept that my family is the reason where I am having issues, or my boss is, or this career is not meant for me, as a matter of fact?
Yes, there is this very common, and resistance is really,
Yeah.
really common.
Okay.
It's a very common thing. Usually, it isn't about others. So you never go and say that your family is the problem,
Yeah, exactly.
but the most amount of resistance that comes is from themselves. So when the therapist is pointing out that maybe you are interpreting this in the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the other person said this and did not mean what you are thinking.
Mm-hmm.
That is one thing where there is the most resistance.
Okay. And
But yes,
what
resistance is a solid part of
a
therapy.
solid part of therapy? I thought so. I was just thinking, and then I thought that people don't want to accept. Resistance is the first part, and also maybe self stigma. The minute, let's say, a psychotherapist says that you have anxiety.
Hmm.
I'm saying this because I was this person before I started working on my startups. My fiance told me that you get stressed very easily, and I really shut him down. I was like, no, I don't get stressed very easily. I'm just a workaholic, and I like to multitask. But this was my answer actually, and I don't get stressed. And as we started working, and as I saw my actually data from the brainwaves, I started realizing, yes, I really get stressed very, very easily, like even with the slightest of things. So this must be also a factor where you say that you are having anxiety attacks, and people are like, no.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's where your product comes in, right?
Yes. No, this was just more of a consumer point and not from the marketing perspective. But yes, this is what made me realize that this is something I would really need. I get stressed very, very easy.
Yeah. But I would like to point out there is a difference between an anxiety or a panic attack and being anxious and stressed.
Yeah.
But I completely agree with your point. There are so many of us who are not even aware that, we we are not being able to handle the stress in our lives.
Yeah.
We think that's just who I am.
Yes. And very recently, I got this question that how 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 do we really decide and convince, because therapy is for the weak. Mental health disorders, how can a person who looks so strong can be so weak mentally? And this word has been associated with the fact that we are not capable enough to take care of our day to day, let me say it like a course, where we are office, family, everything which we have, we are not able to deal with it, which implies weak. So they've made life into a mathematical equation. So is this something which you see very often?
And I do see it, thankfully, lesser and lesser now over the years. But I have always, always said this, and I would repeat this, that I think people who seek therapy are the strongest,
Yes.
because it in today's world and age where everybody's out there to judge you, to call you weaker, you have the guts to say, here I am, I need help, and I have no shame in asking for it.
Exactly.
So I think people who
It's the
seek
other way.
therapy are the
Yes,
strongest.
yes, exactly. Perfect. So I'm glad I have the right approach. My next question would be, can you explain a little bit on how our day-to-day emotions and our lifestyle impacts our brain and eventually mental health? How can small things cause anxiety attacks? How can people start understanding basically this fact that emotions, thoughts, processing have a direct relation to our anxiety and mental health?
Okay. So, eventually, everything in life is just your emotions. Everything, it could be your business, your work, your family, everything thing that you do. How it makes you feel at the end of it is the only thing that matters, right?
Yeah.
So, all in all, everything that you do in life is based, I mean, should be based on how it makes you feel. Unfortunately, it's not so. It is about how much money would this add to my bank account? Where would, how many likes would I get? How many followers? And
Yeah.
basically things
Statistics.
associated with that. So, on an everyday basis, if you can do just a few things like include loads of fresh fruits and vegetables in your diet, have some form of exercise, take at least 10 minutes off where you do nothing.
Yeah.
Either sit, meditate if you can. If you think you can't meditate, if you are the kinds who think, I don't think I'm the kinds who can meditate, just sit and stare at a blank space. Sit in your balcony if you have the privilege of having a balcony and look around. Do nothing.
Yeah.
That's extremely important, because when you think you're doing nothing, your mind is processing a lot. And unfortunately, what we've started doing with ourselves is now every day, like you pointed out, I am just workaholic. I just
Yeah.
want to keep doing things. So what are you doing? You are overloading the mind with so much information, but it has no time to process.
Yeah.
So if you have, let's say, just those 10 minutes a day of doing nothing, that's enough for your mind to process all the things that you've been giving it.
Yes.
And that in itself will have a huge impact on your mental health. So I'm not sure I'm still on the right question.
Yes, yes, yes. You're perfectly on the right question. Now another part to this question is, not a lot of people want to be emotional. They don't want to be perceived as emotional. Let me say it like that. They are emotional. They don't want to be perceived as somebody who is emotional. And they, while they are facing anger and irritation and love or attraction, they don't want to address it, because again, emotions have been pointed out to be connected to as weakness. And I think, do you have a comment on this part?
Uh, actually, I do. Like I said, it's completely related to my previous answer, where everything is emotion.
Yes.
Everything, right? It's eventually everything is how it made you feel. So people who think emotions are weak are simply afraid of facing their emotions and nothing else.
Yeah.
And it is the fear. And unfortunately, men in our society are brought up believing that they can't be sad, they can't cry, they can't be in pain. So men from an early age are told to put anything under the carpet, don't process, and if you react, if you cry, then you are so-called weak.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the association of emotions and weakness comes from, because if you are reacting and emoting and expressing, then you're weak, or you're throwing a tantrum. If it's a woman, then you're
Exactly.
throwing a tantrum. There's you need too much attention. And so unfortunately you know we've been categorizing people and naming them for such a long time that I think that must stop. And I think it's up to people like you and me to help others around realize that it's normal.
Yes.
you know some A very tiny example, I would say 99.9% of the people that I work with will cry in a therapy session. Okay, irrespective of boy or girl, but all of them would cry. Not all, but 99% would cry. Most of them would start crying or shed a few tears and say, I'm so sorry for this. And
Yeah.
I have to always stop them and say, why are you sorry? Because you're just expressing yourself. It is natural. It's unnatural if you don't cry, then
Yeah.
you're just suppressing everything.
Yes. And actually, thank you so very much for bringing this part, because I feel this is of utmost importance, because these standards have kind of impacted our mental health in such a big manner that we are not even aware of. We have set these standards, and especially this crime part. I remember when I was growing up in India, I also had the same thing, that whenever I used to go out of the expectation grid, let me say it like that, I was always apologetic. And I clearly remember my co-founder and my fiance was the only person who used to tell me this thing, that don't be apologetic for whoever you are, whatever emotion you're facing. And unfortunately, it was only one person who told me this. And I think that this was the one thing which really helped me, being me, and not trying to change myself, even if it was, let's say, non-justified.
But I think you were still one of those very fortunate ones who had at least one person telling you.
Exactly.
A lot of people don't, and that's very unfortunate.
Yeah, and that's exactly the fact that it was just one is good. The fact that there was one is good, but we need more of such people
More.
in everybody's life. The number of
Yeah.
people has to increase so that everybody has at least few people wherever they go, because sometimes it's possible that that person is not available, that person is not in your life anymore, whatever reasons could there be, but every person has to provide that platform. I feel we owe it to the humanity, for everybody, to make this thing that I got this feeling, and now I make sure that everybody who approaches to me, even if I don't understand, I do and spread that feeling.
Exactly.
Perfect.
I completely agree.
Thank you. So my next question would be, yes, mental health issues such as depression, anxiety, or any serious disease where we talk about bipolar, or uh, anything such as that, do they happen all of a sudden? Ah.
Usually not. Usually, there would be telltale signs always, but we keep ignoring them.
Okay.
And that, this is completely related to the answer. It's not the first answer, but a few answers before, where I said everybody needs therapy.
Yes.
Because there are these telltale signs and we keep ignoring them till it becomes like a huge, massive thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're like, oh my God, how do I deal with this now? Where did this come from?
Mm-hmm.
So rather than dealing with little weeds that you could deal with,
Mm-hmm.
you let it grow into this huge forest, and not a great forest at that. It's full
Exactly.
of poisonous plants.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to deal with it only when it's become like a huge mountain, huge forest, but not when there are tiny weeds that you can deal with and get over with it.
So is
So
it
no, the onset is rarely.
all of us? But is it
All.
correct to say that these mental health issues, which I would like to classify as stress, anxiety, and depression, and these panic states, can over a period of time, if not addressed, can lead to mental health illnesses such as bipolar or other critical diseases where it really changes everything about us?
It absolutely, and not only mental health issues, not only psychological illnesses, but also physical illnesses. A lot of research is being done, and in most of the research, they've been able to prove that eventually all illnesses, most of the illnesses, have a psychological, a psychosomatic factor.
Yes.
So yes, it is completely possible that anxiety and stress and constant stress,
Mm-hmm.
or constantly not dealing with emotions properly, may lead to physical as well as psychological disorders.
Thank you. I always thought that this is what I could understand from my 1 to 2 year of experience over this company, but I wasn't from a medical grade, let me say it like that. I wasn't really sure that if this is what the medical community also agrees to. Then, one pearl of wisdom you would like to offer everybody who wants to go for therapy or is seeking therapy. One thing which you just stand by.
If for people who are considering therapy and are confused, I would say even if you have 1% of your doubt, throw it out of the window and seek help. Be consistent, go at least for 3 to 4 sessions, and you would see a lot of difference. If nothing else, in the initial few sessions, there'll be catharsis, and you'll have this feeling, oh, there's somebody who'll always listen to you. And that in itself is huge, because eventually all of us are just waiting for others to listen to us. That's it. That's a huge need that the human nature, it exists in the human nature. So that's for people who are considering therapy. And the ones who are already in therapy will have loads of things to tell you, will
Yes.
say that yes, it's changed my life, and I would want to continue it as long as I can. So
And generally, this is the last section of my life where I would really like you to share few stories. It can be a very simple one, or let's say a very simple one, or a very complicated story where people found therapy life changing, so that people can kind of relate to it and understand that, why not me?
hmm.
Anything on the top of your
Okay.
head.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Absolutely. I'm just thinking which story to tell, because I have
Okay.
loads of
Yes,
stories.
I'm sure.
Okay, but no, I would share my own story. I mean, why would I share somebody else's story? Let me
Yes.
share my own story. So, I, uh, I in my childhood was not as I'm completely not remembering the word right now, but okay, let me start from the present. So right now, I am a very self-confident person who knows what I want and who understands who I am and is calm and I love who I am, very honestly.
Yeah.
But it took me a lot of years to reach here. Okay. And I have been working on myself for many, many years. I had issues like, oh, I am not lovable. Nobody can love me. It doesn't matter. And it didn't matter back then what others told me, or there were these friends who would tell me, but you look so nice. None of those mattered. In my heart, I believed that I am not lovable. And if I am not lovable, there will be nobody who would want to, one, be my friend, second, be with me, third, appreciate who I am. So I
Yeah.
was so full of self doubt. That was the word. Yeah. And I worked, and I really worked hard. And thankfully, my field made it very easy for me to find many therapists that I could trust. But over the years, working consistently on myself, the journey has been so fulfilling. And in the initial years, it is painful. Like, I will not be dishonest and I will not make a rosy picture. It was painful because I had to now admit to all my weaknesses. And I realized that the weaknesses were truly not that I am not lovable. The weaknesses were how I looked at myself. And it was not about what the world thinks of me, but what I think of myself. And to change that required a lot of work. But it did, and here I am. So, since the reason we are sharing this story is for everybody listening out there, to
Yeah.
help them understand that therapy could be for you, I would like to point out that I don't have any outward disorder. There's no diagnosis. I was not always anxious. I was not um, like there was no there aren't any classic symptoms where you say, okay, now seek the help of a therapist. It was none of that. For anybody around me, I would look like a normal everyday
Yeah.
random girl who I'm not sure even showed signs of being of having self doubts. So I was as normal as it got. But I realized that no, it isn't, because it's about what I feel within, and I don't feel so great within myself. So that's one story.
It was an amazing one. Thank you so much for sharing this. And I always say this for every aspect of mental health, be it psychology, be it neuroscience, or be it holistic well-being approaches, that these help us unlock the true potential of our mind and our personalities. It just helps us become a better version of ourselves.
Absolutely. And just to add to what you said, the pearl of wisdom that I
Yes.
actually would like to give everybody is learn to be you, and it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks or says or what the society thinks, or none of that matters, because eventually you have to live your own life. Nobody else will live it for you. They'll judge, that's okay, but it's you who has to live it. So just be you and be unapologetically yourself.
Yes, yes. That's the perfect pearl of wisdom I would like for everyone to hear. Thank you so much, Mallika, for coming to our platform and sharing your journey and expertise. I would like to tell all the audience that I will give the link to Mallika's Facebook page below, so that if you have any issues, you should reach out to her. I definitely will reach out to you, Mallika, in Munich.
Perfect.
Thank
I'll
you so
wait for
much.
it.
Yes, thank you so much for joining. You can visit our website newfany.com for the upcoming events and for the previous live videos and for the product, which will be available from tomorrow onwards for pre-order. Thank you so much, everybody. Bye bye, Mallika.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.